he like me? Is this a hookup or something else? I think it's a hookup. Is this cheating? Why is my partner watching porn? Will we get married? Every day around the world, people ask themselves these questions. And what they really want to know at the heart of it is, am I lovable? Am I normal enough for someone to want to be in relationship with me? For someone to want to spend time with me over and over again? For someone to want to get naked with me? And when I was thinking about this talk and my studies, I thought it was oddly similar. I've been studying the future of sex and relationships this past year, and the questions that we have about the future, the questions people ask me about the future, go something like this. Is sex with a robot cheating? If I connect with my partner using teledildonics, is that going to create more intimacy? Will he be more into me? What about if I connected with a porn star through teledildonics? Is that cheating? Is sex with a robot cheating? Is it better than the real thing? Will I end up marrying technology? Is this normal? So today, with the Change School, on the theme of relationships, change, and matters of the heart, I want to share with you a story of change over the ages. I'm going to share how our attitudes towards sex and relationships have shifted over time and have been radically, well, not radically, I think the technology advances were radically, but we've been influenced by technology through these major shifts, these major changes, which allow us to look at how we got here now and what's possible for the future. So right now in 2017, today, we're at what some people call the fourth wave of innovation, or the brink of a conceptual age. Things like AI, AR, VR, all these cool acronyms. They're explaining, they're the scaffolding of our version of normal. And if you went back a few decades ago, that was totally unimaginable or weird, and definitely not normal as it is today. And today, if you wanted to, you could use a remote controlled sex toy, a teledildonic device, like a Kiru, to connect with your partner through haptic sex. You can also purchase a virtual blowjob for $1 on the internet, or you could go to a virtual sex school to learn how to be a better lover. And for some people in Japan right now, they're buying companions like Gatebox, which is like an Alexa or a virtual assistant for your home, except it has a hologram of a cartoon teenage girl, and it will also send you emotional text messages while you're at work, as well as controlling the lights in your house and keeping your temperature regulated in your house. I guess it will also keep your temperature regulated and your emotions somewhat regulated. So these innovations, while on the edge right now, are going to be mainstream shortly. Some may reach mainstream, some may be killed off before then, but it's likely that some will, and they will change the very fabric of our society and challenge our ideas about humanness and our ideas about what is normal and if we are indeed normal. So in explaining this, I wanted to take you back through, if we're at the fourth wave, the previous three waves, to understand how did we get to a place where we're creating teledildonics and capacities for virtual orgies. So 3 ages before then, let's go right back to the start when we moved from a nomadic lifestyle into what is called the agricultural age. And this is really where the birth of sex and marriage came together as one, and a lot of our ideas stick since then. So in the agricultural age, it was all about farming. We divided up the land, and Joe and Mary, very white names, I'm sorry, got a piece of land, and that dividing up the land organized society. It helped decide who inherited what and who was to receive what, and that helped everything function, but it also largely created this idea about monogamy and couples staying together forever for the duration of their lifetime. Of course, political systems and religious systems and legal systems help keep this idea of monogamy in check. And so the next radical shift came with technology, with the invention of steel and the creation of factories, factory work, moving from the workplace from the farm to the factory. And it not only changed the nature of work, it changed the nature of our life experience, of sex, of how we viewed relationships, because suddenly these family structures changed as the father went out to the factory every day for work. We also had the romanticism of this 1920s, the concept of companionate marriage. And so, yes, sex and marriage were still together, but this idea of emotional intimacy and physical pleasure being associated with it were also recognized. And of course, with machines came women's vibrators, although they were largely used to treat medical conditions which were known as hysteria in women. These later became consumer goods and really important in recognizing female pleasure, which still at this point was quite taboo. It was much more about the man's side. But there was a very quiet transition in gender roles, as well as men going off to war and women entering the workplace. So from that, the next big change really is more recently in terms of the information age, where it really signaled, again, a move from the workplace, from not just factories. Now, it didn't kill off factories entirely, just like the Industrial Revolution didn't kill off farms entirely. But it did create a new workplace of knowledge workers. And this largely equalized, obviously not in wages and society and political structures, but in terms of the workforce, an equal standing for women in terms of intellectual capabilities and moral virtues. So again, they sort of matched the men. At this point, we also had birth control invented in the 60s. We had the free love movement in the 70s. So female pleasure was now out and out recognized as a legit thing. And so now we have birth control separating sex from marriage. It's sex, pleasure, and emotional intimacy in the same thing, but sex could come before marriage now or outside of marriage, which was huge and of course largely still exists today. It doesn't have to stay in these traditional structures. And of course, by the time the internet came along, we also, of course, everyone was connected. We were also connected to porn. So this radically changed the way people access their own pleasure or pleasure with their partners. Divorce became more commonplace as people were connected to their old high school flames. We see now the highest rate of divorce in men in their 50s, and if you talk to therapists, a lot of them attribute it to the rise in social networks, where we now have the capability to get back in touch with old loves. This idea of love, this romanticism, still is one of the hardest ideologies for us to topple today. So even when we look at technologies being developed for robots and more faster, efficient sex, we still, for the most part, are still very attached to this idea that sex must be in love and we must stay with our lovers forever. Although there are now some branches out that are exploring that. And I will say, in terms of these ideas that we have about sex, we now have 500 documented reasons, yes, it's official, that we might decide to have sex. So these range from relieving stress to recreation to doing someone a favor to, yes, to making love. So the effects of technology have radically changed the way we have sex and the way we think about sex, and in turn the way we think about our relationships. There's lots of effects that we could study about the present day, from hookup culture to the effects of junk sleep, from being on your phone and the screen time, meaning you can't properly enter REM sleep and rejuvenate. You can also find someone who shares the same hate of anchovies with you that lives within, a mile or 5 miles of you. So again, there's sort of a return to the smaller cities, even when we live in metropolises. But what of the future? This talk is about the future, and I guess for context, I wanted to share with you my ideas about how we came here. And today, if you look at some of the research that today, and people I've been interviewing who are creating artificial intelligence in what they call real dolls. So they're putting intelligence in personalities, unique memories and ideas about their companion. For instance, if I had a real doll and I told it that my favorite food was pizza, if I came home from work one day and said, oh, I'm going to have a hamburger, it would say, why would you have a hamburger when you know your favorite food's pizza? And there's cameras inside their heads that can detect whether they're outside or they're indoors. They're becoming so smart. We have sites now coming out around women's pleasure. Of course, today we have OMG Yes for female masturbation. We have virtual schools where you can go and learn now for men, but in the future for women, about how to be a better lover. We'll be able to connect in a virtual world. In fact, entire relationships could be conducted in virtual reality. You might not ever see the person you have your relationship with if we continue to develop as we are. So you could meet someone in a virtual park and go on a virtual first date, chat on a virtual park bench, and then go to see a movie together in a virtual world. And you may just feel them through your haptic bodysuit, which transmits via sensors how they're feeling to you. So technology is driving these massive changes in how we think about things and the shifts of like what is normal. And I think when I started studying the future and was kind of blown away with what exists today already, my main message in this talk is we keep asking ourselves what is normal, but really we have to ask ourselves, what do we want? What does it all mean? And unless we start asking those questions, we let technology define us and we let other things define what it means to be human. So when this question remains, am I normal? What is normal? Think about who on earth you're thinking is going to decide what is normal. It's totally unregulated. It's often dictated by where you grew up, the culture you grew up in, and a point in time, and the technology that existed at that stage. So while technology is bringing all these incredible shifts for sex and relationships, our needs have not changed. We still want to be loved. We still want to feel connected. Our emotions continue to matter, even in a digital virtual world. So next time you ask yourself, am I normal? Is this normal? I think you should ask yourself, is this right for me? And it's not just about technology. If I look at the therapists I've been interviewing and the new forms of relationships, whether that's open relationships, consensual non-monogamy, that's a mouthful to get out. It's not about doing it because of a trend. It can be viewed as an experiment. It can be viewed as getting to know yourself. It can also be viewed as shameful, pleasurable. It depends where you would like it to be. So in all these new models of relationships, in all this new technology, you don't, burying this home, that you don't need to ask, is this normal? Am I normal? But is this right for me? At an individual level, and get to know yourself. And then as a society, I think it's critical that we pause and think about the technology that we're developing for better, faster, more extreme sexual experiences, and think, well, what do we want the future of relationships to look like? So I wanted to leave you with those two questions. Thank you so much for having me at the Change School. You can find me on thefutureofsex.org, and I'd love to hear from you and hear your comments, your questions, your feedback about the future.